The Galactic Council had ruled the stars for 11,000 years. Nobody remembered a time before them. Nobody could imagine a time after them. They were eternal. They were absolute. They were the law that held 300 civilizations in perfect order. The Council was made of 12 species. Each one was old beyond human understanding. Each one had conquered their corner of the galaxy long before Earth's first fish crawled onto land. They had fought wars that lasted centuries. They had built empires that spanned thousands of star systems. And then, tired of endless conflict, they had come together to form something greater. The Galactic Council met at a massive station that floated above a dead world called Vesser Prime. The station was the size of a small moon. It glowed with lights from 1,000,000 windows. Ships came and went from its docking bays at all hours. It was the center of galactic civilization. Every important decision was made there. Every law was written there. Every species that wanted to matter had to bow their dog. Arbiter Vorathan was the leader of the council. He belonged to the Zalari Dominion, a species of tall, thin beings with gray skin and 4 eyes. The Zalari had been part of the council since its founding. They considered themselves the wisest and most noble of all species. Zorath Khan believed this more than anyone. He sat in his private chamber, looking out at the stars through a window that stretched from floor to ceiling. His 4 eyes moved independently, each one tracking a different ship as it passed by. He was old, even by Zalari standards. He had served on the council for 300 years. He had seen species rise and fall. On the fall, he had watched civilizations beg for mercy at his feet. Nothing surprised him anymore. Nothing impressed him. The galaxy was a machine, and he was the one who kept it running. A soft chime sounded. His aide, a young Zalari named Keith, entered the chamber and bowed low. "I, Arbiter," Cathal said. "We have detected something unusual." Vorath Khan did not turn from the window. "Define unusual." "A ship, High Arbiter. It appeared at the edge of council space approximately 2 hours ago. Is using a form of faster-than-light travel we have not seen before." This made Vorath Khan's eyes focus. All 4 of them turned to look at his aide. "Explain." Keith pulled up a holographic display. It showed a small ship barely larger than a council shuttle. It was made of metal and ceramic. Its design was crude, functional, ugly by council standards. The ship identifies itself as the ES Prometheus. The Cathal said it comes from a planet called Earth, a small world in the outer spiral arm. "We have records of this planet in our archives. It was surveyed approximately 12,000 years ago and deemed unsuitable for contact." "Why?" "The dominant species was primitive. They had not yet developed agriculture. The survey team recommended waiting until they reached a suitable level of advancement." Cathal paused. "It appears they have advanced faster than predicted." Vorath Khan studied the image of the ship. It was so small, so fragile. He could see the welding marks on its hull. He could see the primitive thrusters on its back. This was not a ship built by a great civilization. This was a ship built by children, playing with tools they barely understood. "How fast is their FTL drive?" he asked, approximately 1/10 the speed of our standard vessels. Vorath Khan made a sound that might have been a laugh. "So they have crawled out of their cradle and stumbled into our space. How amusing." "What are your orders, High Arbiter?" The Wrath thought for a moment. New species were always a delicate matter. Some could be useful, some could be dangerous. Most were simply absorbed. They became vassals of the council. They provided resources, labor, soldiers. In exchange, they were allowed to exist. "Bring them here," Burkhan said. "Let us see what these humans have to offer." The S Prometheus received the summons 3 hours later. Captain David Chun read the message on the bridge, his face carefully neutral. Around him, his crew of 40 worked at their stations, pretending not to watch him. The message was short. It was not a request. It was a command. "They want us to dock at their station," Chun said. "They say they want to discuss our integration into their council." His first officer, Commander Sarah Park, moved to stand beside him. "Integration doesn't sound voluntary." "No, it doesn't." Chun had expected this. They all had. Humanity had known about the council for a long time, longer than anyone outside the highest levels of government knew, and humanity had prepared for this moment. The Prometheus was not what it appeared to be. "Send word to Earth," Chun said quietly. Tell them we've made contact. Tell them. The council is exactly what we expected. Park nodded and moved to the communication station. The message would take time to reach Earth through the hidden relay network, but it would get there, and then humanity would know that their 60 years of preparation had not been wasted. The Prometheus docked at Nesser Station 8 hours later. Captain Chun and a small delegation were escorted through massive corridors by armed guards. The guards were not Zalari. They were CF massive four-armed creatures with skin like stone. They did not speak. They did not need to. Their presence said everything. The council chamber was enormous. It could have held 1,000 people, but only 12 seats were filled. 12 representatives of 12 species, arranged in a semicircle around a raised platform. And at the center, on a throne that floated above the others, sat Vorkon. Chun stopped at the edge of the platform. He was supposed to bow. Every species bowed when they first entered the council chamber. It was tradition. Vaskin. It was law. It was a sign of respect. Doch Chun did not bow. A murmur ran through the chamber. Vorathkon leaned forward, his 4 eyes narrowing. "You stand before the Galactic Council," he said. His voice echoed through the chamber, amplified by hidden speakers. "You will show proper respect." "Respect is earned," Chan said. His voice was calm, steady. "We came here in peace. We came here hoping to meet others who share the stars. So far, we have been treated like criminals. Forgive me if I'm not feeling very respectful." The murmur grew louder. Several council members looked shocked. Others looked angry. One, a representative from his species Chun didn't recognize, looked almost amused. Varathon raised a hand and the chamber fell silent. "You are bold," he said. "I will give you that. But boldness without power is just foolishness. And you human have no power here. We have the power to choose our own fate." "No, you don't." Vathkon stood. He was tall, nearly 3 meters. He looked down at Chun like a man looking at an insect. "Your species has violated council law by entering our space without permission. You have used technology that was not approved by council engineers. You have contaminated 12-star systems with your primitive communication signals." Chun said nothing. He had expected something like this. "Normally," Vorathcoin continued, "such violations would result in the immediate destruction of your home world. We would reduce your planet to ash and scatter your species to the void. This is the law. This is justice." He paused, letting the words sink in. "But the council is merciful. We are offering you a chance. Your species will submit to vassal status. You will surrender your homeworld's resources to council management. You will provide your population as labor for council projects. And in exchange, you will be allowed to live." The chamber was silent. Every eye was on Chun. Every ear waited for his response. Chun looked around the chamber. He looked at the 12 species who had ruled the galaxy for 11,000 years. He looked at their ancient faces, their cold eyes, their absolute certainty that they were in control. And then he smiled. "No," he said. Varathon blinked. All 4 eyes blinked at once, which would have been funny under different circumstances. "I don't think you understand your situation," he said slowly. "This is not a negotiation. This is a sentence. You will accept our terms or your species will die." "I understand perfectly," Chun said. "You've told us that you will destroy our planet if we don't become your slaves. You've told us that our only choices are submission or extinction." He paused. "I'm telling you that we choose neither. There is no third option. There's always a third option. You just haven't seen it yet." Verkonlis' expression changed. For the first time in 300 years, he felt something he didn't recognize. It took him a moment to identify it. It was uncertainty. "Take them back to their ship," he commanded. "Give them 12 hours to reconsider. After that, we will begin the cleansing of their world." The guards moved forward. Chun didn't resist. He allowed himself to be escorted out of the chamber. But as he reached the door, he turned back. 12 hours, he said. "That's more than enough time." The door closed behind him. Vorophon stood in the empty chamber for a long time after the humans left. The other council members had departed, returning to their ships and their systems. But he remained, staring at the door through which the human captain disappeared. Something was wrong. He could feel it. The human had been too calm, too confident. A species facing extinction should beg. They should plead. They should offer anything, everything to survive. But Chun had smiled. He had smiled like a man who knew something Vera didn't. "Keith," Vrathon called. His aide appeared instantly. "Yes, Ayarbager. Tell me everything we know about humanity." Everything. What followed was a long night. Cathal brought file after file from the archives. Most of it was useless ancient surveys, outdated observations, speculation from scientists who had died millennia ago. But some of it was more recent. Humanity had been transmitting radio signals into space for over a century. The Council had intercepted many of them. At first, they had seemed harmless entertainment, news, fragments of culture. The Council had not bothered to translate most of them. But now Vera ordered a full analysis. What he found disturbed him. The humans had spent their entire history at war. They had fought each other across every continent of their planet. They had developed weapons of incredible destruction, weapons that could level cities, weapons that could poison the land for generations, weapons that could split atoms themselves, and they had used them on themselves. What kind of species destroys itself? Vorathkon muttered. Perhaps they are simply primitive, Keith suggested. Many young species go through violent phases before. No, Vorathkon cut him off. Look at this. They developed atomic weapons. They used them in war. And then they kept building more. They built enough to destroy their own planet several times over. Any sane species would have stopped. Any rational civilization would have destroyed such weapons rather than risk extinction. But they didn't. They didn't. They kept them. They pointed them at each other, and they waited. Verkan's 4 eyes moved across the data screens. They spent 50 years pointing world-ending weapons at each other, each side knowing that if they attacked, they would be destroyed in return. And they didn't break. They didn't surrender. They just waited. Cather was silent. He didn't understand what troubled the High Arbiter so much. The Wraithen understood. He understood all too well. The Council ruled through fear. They threatened destruction, and species submitted. It was simple. It was effective. It had worked for 11,000 years. But these humans had spent generations living under the threat of their own destruction. They had normalized it. They had adapted to it. Fear might not work on them. Morning came to Desseration. In his quarters aboard the Prometheus, Captain Chun received a message from Earth. He read it twice, then deleted it. He didn't need to keep it. He would remember every word. Ambassador Elena Vasquez arrived 3 hours later. She had traveled on a diplomatic shuttle that was supposed to take a week to reach Council space. It had arrived in 6 hours. Nobody noticed this. Nobody thought to question it. The Council was too busy preparing their demonstration of power. Vasquez was a small woman in her 50s. Her hair was gray. Her face was lined. She looked like someone's grandmother. She was the most dangerous human in the galaxy. Thuring with Verathkon in his private chamber. He had summoned her there, expecting to see fear, expecting to see surrender. Instead, he saw a woman who sat across from him like an equal. "Ambassador of Vasquez," he said, "I assume your captain has explained your situation." "He has, and you understand that you have." He checked the display. 9 hours remaining before we begin the destruction of your planet. "I understand that you've made a threat." Vasquez smiled. It was a warm smile, a grandmother's smile. It didn't reach her eyes. "And I'm here to give you one chance to withdraw it." Vorathkon laughed. It was a genuine laugh, something he hadn't done in years. "You are threatening me. You, whose species has barely learned to walk among the stars. You, whose entire fleet consists of one ship held together with primitive welding." "I'm not threatening you," Vasquez said. "I'm warning you. There's a difference. Enlighten me." Vasquez leaned back in her chair. "You've studied us. I know you have. You've looked at our history. You've seen our wars, our weapons, our capacity for violence, and you've concluded that we're primitive, brutal, easy to intimidate. An accurate assessment, is it?" Vasquez tilted her head. "Let me tell you what you missed. Yes, we're violent. Yes, we've spent most of our history trying to kill each other. But that's not what makes us dangerous." She leaned forward. "What makes us dangerous is that we learn from it. Every war taught us something. Every weapon we built, we learned to counter. Every strategy we used, we learned to defeat. We have been perfecting the art of war for 10,000 years. Not war against other species, war against ourselves. The most creative, adaptable, relentless enemy we could possibly face. Varkon's eyes narrowed. Your point. My point is simple. You think you can frighten us into submission. You think you can threaten our planet, and we'll fall in line like every other species you've conquered. But we're not like them. We've been threatened with extinction before. We've threatened each other with extinction. And we're still here. She stood. You have 12 hours to withdraw your threat. If you don't, you will learn exactly what humanity is capable of. And I promise you, High Arbiter, you will not enjoy the lesson. She walked to the door. The Rathcon's guards moved to stop her, but he raised a hand. Let her go, he said. Vasquez paused at the door. One more thing, you asked. What kind of species destroys itself? The answer is a species that would rather die than live on its knees. Remember that. She left. Vorathan sat alone in the darkness of his chamber. For the first time in 300 years, he felt something cold in his chest. He told himself it was contempt. He told himself these humans were bluffing. They had one ship, one primitive, ugly little ship. What could they possibly do against the combined might of the Galactic Council? He told himself many things. But deep down, in a place he would never admit existed, he felt something else. He felt afraid. The hours passed. The Council fleet assembled around Deseru Station. 300 warships from 12 species, each one bristling with weapons that could crack planets. It was the largest gathering of military force in a century. It was meant to demonstrate the Council's absolute power. Ambassador Vasquez watched from the observation deck of the Prometheus. Captain Chun stood beside her. They're not going to back down, Chun said quietly. No, they're not. Vasquez sighed. I had hoped. But no, they've ruled too long. They've forgotten what it means to face an enemy who isn't afraid of them. Then we proceed as planned. Vasquez was silent for a long moment. Outside the window, Council warships moved into attack formation. In 9 hours, they would begin their journey to Earth. In 9 hours, they would begin the genocide of humanity, unless humanity stopped them first. Yes, Vasquez said finally. Send the signal. Activate the Lazarus Protocol. Chun nodded. He moved to the communication station and entered a code that only 12 people in the galaxy knew. The signal traveled through hidden relays, bouncing across the galaxy at speeds the Council thought impossible. It reached Earth in seconds. It reached other places to places the Council didn't know existed. 60 years of preparation, 60 years of watching, waiting, building. 60 years of pretending to be primitive while becoming something else entirely. The universe was about to learn what humanity could really do, and the Galactic Council had exactly 9 hours left to exist. The signal reached Earth in 4 seconds. It passed through 17 hidden relay stations, each one disguised as space debris or small asteroids. The Council sensors never detected it. They didn't even know to look. Deep beneath the Swiss Alps, in a facility that officially did not exist, General Marcus Webb received the message. He was an old man with white hair and steady hands. He had spent his entire career preparing for this moment. Part of him had hoped it would never come, but it had come, and now humanity would respond. Confirm Lazarus Protocol authorization. He said that the computer screen in front of him displayed a simple question. Proceed with Lazarus Protocol. Why no Webb thought about his grandchildren? He thought about the blue skies of Earth. He thought about everything humanity had built over thousands of years. The art, the music, the science, the dreams, all of it was under threat now. All of it could be destroyed if he didn't act. He pressed yes. Across the planet, things began to happen. In Nevada, a mountain that had been closed to the public for 50 years suddenly opened. Deep inside, engines that had been silent for decades roared to life. Ships, real ships, not the primitive decoy called Prometheus, rose into the dark tunnels and prepared to launch. In the Pacific Ocean. Something massive stirred beneath the waves. It was the size of a city. It had been waiting there for 40 years, growing, building, preparing. Now it received its orders and began to move. In orbit around Saturn. Hidden among the rings, a fleet of 300 vessels powered up their systems. They were small by Council standards, each one barely larger than a Council shuttle. But they carried weapons the Council had never seen, weapons humanity had invented specifically for this day. And scattered throughout Council space itself, in asteroid fields and abandoned moons, and the dark spaces between stars. Thousands of devices woke from their long sleep. They had been placed there over decades by human ships that came and went without ever being noticed. They had been waiting for this signal. Now they were ready. General Webb watched as status reports flooded his screen. Green lights appeared one after another. Every asset was online. Every weapon was armed. Every soldier was ready. 60 years of preparation. 60 years of secrets. And now, in the span of a few hours, humanity would either secure its place among the stars or be wiped from existence. There was no middle ground. There never had been. Webb picked up a phone that connected directly to the Secretary General of the United Nations. "Ma'am," he said, "Lazarus is active. We're ready on your command." On the other end of the line, Secretary General Amara Alonquil closed her eyes. She was sitting in a bunker beneath New York City, surrounded by the leaders of every major nation on Earth. They had all gathered here when a message from the Prometheus arrived. They had all known what would happen next. "How long do we have?" she asked. "The Council fleet will reach Earth in approximately 47 hours, if they launch on schedule. But our assets in Council space can begin operations immediately, and the civilian population evacuation to deep shelters is already underway. We estimate 60% coverage within the next 6 hours." Okono nodded. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough if the Council actually reached Earth. Their weapons could crack the planet open like an egg. No shelter would save them then, which meant the Council fleet could never reach Earth. She looked around the room. Presidents, prime ministers, chancellors, the most powerful people on the planet, and all of them were looking at her, waiting for her decision. "Begin the operation," she said. The order traveled at the speed of light. Within seconds, humanity's hidden military machine began to move. Admiral Chen Wei stood on the bridge of the ESV Vengeance. It was humanity's largest warship, a vessel nearly 2 kilometers long, bristling with weapons that would give Council engineers nightmares. It had been built in secret over 30 years, hidden in a hollowed-out asteroid beyond Neptune's orbit. Now had it led a fleet of 300 ships toward Council space. "Time to target?" she asked. "4 to the first objective," her tactical officer replied. 4 hours. Chen Wei remembered when she was a young officer, when she first learned the truth about humanity's situation. She had been angry then. Angry that the government had kept such secrets. Angry that humanity had spent so much on weapons instead of exploration. But she understood now. She understood that the galaxy was not a friendly place. It was a jungle, where the strong devoured the weak. Humanity had 2 choices: become strong or become prey. They had chosen to become strong. Status of the infiltration teams. She asked all teams in position. "Awaiting your command." Chunwei nodded. Throughout Council space, small groups of humans waited in hidden locations. Some had been there for years, posing as traders or refugees. Some had arrived just weeks ago, slipping past Council security with forged credentials. All of them were trained for one purpose: to cause maximum chaos at the right moment. "Send the signal," Chi said. "Begin Phase 1. Phase 1 was simple in concept, but devastating in execution. Across 12 star systems, Council infrastructure began to fail. It started small. Communication relays went offline. Navigation beacons sent wrong signals. Cargo ships arrived at empty stations or crashed into asteroids that weren't supposed to be there. Then it got worse. Power stations exploded. Defense satellites turned on each other. Military databases were corrupted by viruses that had been planted years ago. Waiting for this moment on Nesser Station, High Arbiter Vorithcon was awakened by alarms. "What is happening?" He demanded that his aide Cathro was pale with fear. "We don't know, High Arbiter. Systems are failing across the sector. The Third Fleet reports their navigation is offline. The Krath homeworld has lost all orbital defenses. We're receiving distress calls from an explosion rocked the station." The lights flickered. That was the primary power core, Catherall said, his voice trembling. Someone sabotaged it. Vorathcom's 4 went wide. He finally understood. He finally saw what the humans have been planning. They were never primitive, he whispered. It was all a deception. The Prometheus, the slow ship, the crude technology. It had all been a show, a performance designed to make the Council underestimate humanity. And it had worked. The Council had looked at humanity and seen children playing with toys. They had not seen the wolf hiding behind the mask. "Get me the Council," Barathkin shouted. "Emergency session now." But it was already too late. In the space around Dissercher's Council warships scrambled to respond to the crisis. 300 vessels tried to coordinate their defense against an enemy. They couldn't see then they saw the enemy. The first wave of human missiles came out of nowhere. They had been hidden in Council space for years, disguised as debris or asteroids. Now they accelerated toward the Council fleet at speeds that shouldn't have been possible. Council commanders barely had time to recognize the threat before the missile struck. Each missile carried a small amount of antimatter technology the Council believed humans didn't possess. When they hit their targets, they released energy equivalent to small nuclear bombs. Council ships designed to withstand conventional weapons were torn apart in seconds. In the first minute of the attack, 40 Council ships were destroyed. Admiral Crexville of the Kree battle fleet tried to rally his forces. The Kree were warriors. They had never lost a battle in 3,000 years. They would not lose one now. "All ships form offensive formation," he commanded. "Target the incoming missiles would point defense systems." His ships responded with discipline. Thousands of weapons opened fire, filling space with a wall of destruction. Many of the human missiles were destroyed before they reached their targets, but not all of them. And the missiles kept coming. "Where are they coming from?" Krex demanded. "Everywhere, Admiral," his tactical officer replied. "They're coming from everywhere." It was true. The missiles weren't launching from a single location. They were emerging from hiding places, scattered across the entire sector. Some had been there for decades. Others had been placed just weeks ago. The humans had turned Council space itself into a weapon. Crexville watched in disbelief as his fleet was torn apart. Ships that had conquered worlds were being destroyed by an enemy that refused to show itself. It was like fighting ghosts. Then the ghosts appeared. The human fleet emerged from faster than light, traveled directly in the middle of the Council formation. 300 ships, led by the massive Vengeance, materialized without warning. Council sensors hadn't detected their approach. Council intelligence had said humans couldn't travel that fast. Council strategists had calculated that humanity was decades away from being a serious threat. Council strategists had been wrong. Admiral Cheney smiled grimly as her fleet opened fire. "Target their flagships first. Cut off their command structure." The Vengeance's main weapons were something new, something humanity had developed in the hidden laboratories beneath the Pacific Ocean. They called them disruptors. They fired beams of energy that didn't just damage ships. They tore apart the molecular bonds that held matter together. The first disruptor beam hit a Council battleship. The ship didn't explode. It didn't burn. It simply came apart. Its hull dissolved like sugar and water. Its crew had exactly 3 seconds to realize what was happening before they ceased to exist. The Council fleet broke. Discipline, training, 3,000 years of military tradition. None of it mattered against weapons that could unmake matter itself. Ships fled in all directions, desperate to escape the nightmare that humanity had brought to their doorstep. Some made it. Most did not. On Thesser Station, Vathcon watched the destruction through his window. His fleet, the fleet that was supposed to destroy Earth, was being annihilated, and there was nothing he could do. "Arbiter," Keith said. "The other Council members are demanding to speak with you." Vera didn't respond. He couldn't take his eyes off the battle outside. He had seen many things in his 300 years. He had seen wars, rebellions, extinctions, but he had never seen anything like this. The humans weren't just winning. They were being methodical. They were being efficient. They were dismantling the Council's military with the precision of surgeons removing a tumor. This wasn't warfare. This was surgery. "How?" Volithin whispered. "How did they do this?" He understood now too late what he had missed. The humans hadn't stumbled into Council space by accident. They had been watching the council for years, perhaps decades. They had studied council technology. They had analyzed council tactics. They had found every weakness, every blind spot, every vulnerability, and they had built their entire military around exploiting those weaknesses. The Prometheus had been baked. Its crude appearance, its slow speed, its obvious vulnerability, all of it had been designed to make the council feel superior, to make them arrogant, to make them lower their guard, and the council had fallen for it completely. "Contact the human fleet," Farafan said suddenly. Cathal stared at him. "Hi, Arbiter." "Contact them. Tell them we want to negotiate." Keithal hurried to obey. A few minutes later, Ambassador Vasquez's face appeared on the screen. She looked exactly as she had hours ago, calm, collected, completely in control. "Hi, Arbiter," she said. "I see you've reconsidered our position. What do you want?" Vorath Khan demanded. "Name your terms. We'll agree to anything. Just stop the attack." Vasquez was silent for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was soft, almost sad. "You threatened our planet," she said. "You threatened to destroy our homeworld, to kill 8 billion people, to wipe our entire species from existence." She paused. "Did you really think there would be no consequences? We were bluffing. We never intended to actually. We don't know that. We can't know that. And we can't take that risk." Vasquez leaned forward. "You made us an enemy, High Arbiter. You showed us that the Council would rather destroy us than accept us as equals. That means we can never be safe as long as the Council exists." Vera felt cold. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying it's too late for negotiations. You had your chance. 12 hours ago, I offered you peace. You laughed at me. You threatened my planet. You assembled a fleet to murder my people." Her eyes hardened. "Now you pay the price." The screen went dark. The Rathcon stood alone in his chamber, watching his world burn. The Council fleet was nearly gone. The station's defenses were failing, and the human fleet was closing in. He thought about running. He thought about begging. He thought about all the things he had done in his 300 years. All the species he had broken, all the civilizations he had destroyed. The humans were simply doing to him what he had done to so many others. In a way, it was justice. The final assault began at midnight station time. Human ships surrounded Desert Station, cutting off any hope of escape. Boarding teams prepared to breach the hull. The end was coming, and everyone knew it. But it wasn't the warships that destroyed the Council. It wasn't missiles or disruptors or boarding teams. It was something smaller, something that had been planted years ago and never discovered. Deep in the station's core, in the chamber where the main reactor hummed with power, a small device activated. It was no bigger than a human fist. It had been placed there by a human spy who had been working on the station for 12 years, waiting for this moment. The device contained antimatter. Not much, just a few grams. But when it detonated, it released more energy than 1,000 nuclear bombs. The explosion was visible from orbit. The station, the center of galactic civilization for 11,000 years, was vaporized in less than a second. High Arbiter Vorathon, along with the entire Council leadership, ceased to exist. Admiral Chunwei watched from the bridge of the Vengeance. She felt no satisfaction, no triumph, only the grim knowledge that what was done was necessary. Station destroyed. A tactical officer reported. No survivors. Chuni nodded. Status of the Council fleet. Approximately 80% destroyed or disabled. Remaining vessels are retreating. Let them go. They'll spread the word about what happened here. And that was the point. This wasn't just about destroying the Council. It was about sending a message. A message that would reach every corner of the galaxy. A message that every species would understand. Earth was not to be threatened. Humanity was not to be underestimated. And anyone who tried to harm them would face consequences beyond imagination. Chen Wei turned to her communications officer. "Open a channel to Ambassador Vasquez." Vasquez's face appeared on the screen. She was still on the Prometheus, which had been moved to a safe distance before the battle began. She looked tired. She looked old. But she also looked satisfied. "It's done," Chune said. "The Council is destroyed." "I know." Vasquez closed her eyes briefly. "And now the real work begins." Chuni understood. Destroying the council was the easy part. What came next would be much harder. Somewhere out there, 300 civilizations were waking up to a galaxy without rulers. Some would be grateful. Some would be terrified. Some would see opportunity in the chaos. Humanity had just appended 11,000 years of galactic order. Now they had to build something new, something better, or they would become exactly what they had destroyed. "Shall I give the order to stand down?" Chung Wei asked. "Not yet." Vasquez opened her eyes. "We still have work to do. The council is gone, but their systems remain. Their weapons remain. Their loyal followers remain. You want to keep fighting? I want to make sure this can never happen again." Vasquez's voice was hard. "I want every species in the galaxy to understand that the old way is over. There will be no more empires, no more vassals, no more threats of extinction. From now on, we deal with each other as equals, or not at all." Chenny nodded slowly. It was a noble goal. Whether it was achievable remained to be seen, but they had made a good start. In the space where this station had once stood, debris floated silently in the void, the heart of an empire reduced to atoms, and around it, the ships of humanity stood watch, ready to defend their home against any threat. The galaxy had changed forever, and humanity was just getting started. The news spread through the galaxy like fire through dry grass. The council was gone. Thus, her station was destroyed. The most powerful military force in known space had been wiped out in less than an hour by a species that nobody had taken seriously. On 1,000 worlds, beings of every shape and size stared at their screens in disbelief. The council had been eternal. The council had been invincible. The council had crushed every rebellion, broken every resistance, absorbed every species that dared to challenge them. And now they were gone. Captain Yuki Tanaka stood on the bridge of the ESV Nemesis, watching the chaos unfold. Her ship was one of the smaller vessels in humanity's fleet, a fast attack craft designed for hit-and-run operations. For the past 3 days, she had been moving through former council space, observing the aftermath of humanity's victory. It was not pretty. "Commander," her communications officer said, "we're receiving distress signals from the 2 system. Multiple ships. They're being attacked." Tanaka frowned. "By whom?" "Unknown. The signals are fragmented, but it sounds like pirates, ma'am." Of course, Tanaka should have expected this. The council had been brutal and oppressive, but they had also maintained order. Their fleets had patrolled trade routes. Their stations had provided safe harbor. Their laws had protected the weak when it suited them. Now the council was gone, and all that protection had vanished with them. The predators were emerging from hiding. "Set course for the Tor system," Tanaka ordered. "Maximum speed." The Nemesis jumped into faster-than-light travel. The stars stretched into lines and then disappeared entirely, as the ship crossed the vast distances of space in minutes instead of months. They arrived to find a massacre in progress. 3 large ships, heavily armed and bearing no identification, were attacking a convoy of cargo vessels. The cargo ships had no weapons. They had no defenses. They were fish being eaten by sharks. Tanaka didn't hesitate. "All weapons online. Target the attackers." The Nemesis opened fire. The pirates, if that's what they were, never saw them coming. The first ship exploded before its crew could even respond. The second managed to turn toward the threat before 2 missiles tore through its hull. The third tried to run. It didn't get far. "Targets destroyed," the tactical officer reported. "The convoy is hailing us." Tanaka nodded. On screen, a face appeared strange by human standards, with blue skin and large black eyes. The being was trembling with what Tanaka recognized as fear. "Please," it said, "please don't kill us. We have no weapons. We're just traders." "We calm down," Tanaka said gently. "We're not here to hurt you. We're from Earth. We came to help." The alien Tanaka thought it might be of Renini, a minor species that had been vassals of the Council for centuries, stared at her in confusion. "From Earth, the humans. But you destroyed the Council." "Yes, and now you're helping us." Tanaka smiled slightly. "That's the plan. Are your ships damaged? Do you need assistance?" The vowel seemed unable to process this. In its experience, the powerful didn't help the weak. The strong took what they wanted. and the weak survived by staying out of their way. The idea that someone might use their power to protect others was completely foreign. Yes, 2 of our ships have damaged engines. We cannot reach our destination without repairs. We'll escort you, Tanaka said. My engineers can help with your repairs. Just follow us. The convoy made it to port safely 3 hours later. The Varan traders were still confused, still waiting for the humans to reveal their true intentions. When Tanaka left without asking for anything in return, they didn't know what to think. But they remembered, and they told others. The Nemesis was not the only human ship doing this kind of work. Throughout former Council space, human vessels were moving quietly, responding to distress calls, intercepting pirates, helping those in need. It wasn't charity, it was strategy. Ambassador Vasquez had understood something important. You couldn't build a new galactic order with weapons alone. You needed trust. You needed goodwill. You needed species to see humanity as protectors, not just destroyers. So while the main fleet secured critical locations and dealt with remaining Council loyalists, smaller ships like the Nemesis spread out to do the slow, unglamorous work of winning hearts and minds. On the planet Threshold, home to the Kree warriors, who had served as the Council's enforcers, a very different scene was unfolding. General Vortak stood in the ruins of his capital building. Around him, fires still burned. The human bombardment had been precise, targeted only at military installations, government buildings, and weapons factories. Civilian areas had been left untouched. It was almost insulting. The humans could have destroyed everything. They could have wiped out the entire Kree species the way the Kree had wiped out so many others. Instead, they had carefully removed the CFT's ability to fight, while leaving their population alive. It was a message, and Vorontak understood it perfectly. "General," one of his aides said, "the humans are requesting communication." Vortak nodded heavily. He was a warrior. He had fought in 100 battles. He had never surrendered in his life. But this was not a battle he could win. The screen flickered to life, showing a human woman with gray hair and kind eyes. "Ambassador Vasquez, General Vontak," she said. "I hope you're willing to talk. Do I have a choice?" "Yes. You always have a choice. You can refuse to speak with me. You can try to rebuild your military and fight us again. You can spend the next century nursing your hatred." Vasquez paused. "Or you can accept that the universe has changed and try to find a place in the new order." Vortak was silent for a long moment. "You destroyed us. You humiliated us. And now you want us to what? Forgive you? No. I want you to understand why it happened." Vasquez leaned forward. "Your people served the Council for 3,000 years. You enforced their will. You crushed rebellions. You broke species that tried to resist." She paused. "Did you think there would be no consequences for that? We were following orders, and now you're not. The Council is gone. Their orders are meaningless. The question is, what will you do now? Will you become what you've always been, warriors who serve whoever is strongest? Or will you try to be something more?" Bontag felt something stir in his chest. It took him a moment to recognize it. It was hope. "What are you offering?" "A chance," Vasquez said. "Your people are warriors. That doesn't have to change. But instead of fighting to oppress others, you could fight to protect them. The galaxy is in chaos right now. Pirates, warlords, opportunists, they're all trying to fill the void the Council left behind. Someone needs to stop them. You want us to be your soldiers? No, I want you to be partners. All eyes, equals." Vasquez smiled slightly. "I know that's hard to believe. The Council never treated anyone as equals. But we're not the Council. We don't want subjects or vassals. We want friends." Vortak considered this his entire life. He had known only one way: the strong ruled and the weak obeyed. The idea of a galaxy where species cooperated as equals seemed like a dream, a fantasy. But maybe it was a dream worth fighting for. "I will speak with my people," he said finally. "No promises, but I will speak with them. That's all I ask." The communication ended. Vortak stood alone in the ruins of his world, thinking about the future for the first time in his long life. Back on Earth, Secretary General Okono was dealing with the less glamorous aspects of their victory. The war was over, but the work was just beginning. Humanity had destroyed the Council in a matter of hours, But building a replacement would take years, maybe decades. And in the meantime, they had to manage the chaos. The Zalari remnants are regrouping in the outer arm, General Webb reported. They've gathered about 30 ships. Not enough to threaten us directly, but enough to cause problems. Okonkwo nodded. And the other council species makes response. The craft seem open to negotiation. The Theani have declared neutrality. The Vex have gone silent. We're not sure what they're playing. Webb pulled up a star map. The real problem is the minor species. There are over 200 civilizations that were vassals of the Council. Most of them have no functioning government now. They're vulnerable and everyone knows it. Yes, Okono studied the map. 200 civilizations, billions of beings, all of them suddenly without protection, without leadership, without hope. Humanity had taken responsibility for this. When they destroyed the Council, they had accepted responsibility for what came after. They couldn't just walk away now. We need to send more ships, she said. Peacekeeping forces. Not to conquer, to protect. Anyone who wants our help gets it. Anyone who doesn't, we leave alone. That will stretch our resources thin. Then we recruit. Okono turned to face Webb. The Krath aren't the only species with military tradition. There are others out there who might want to help. Find them. Talk to them. Build a coalition. Webb looked skeptical. You want to arm former council vassals? I want to give them the chance to defend themselves and each other. Okono sat down heavily in her chair. We can't police the entire galaxy ourselves, Marcus. We're one species. If we try to do everything alone, we'll fail. Or worse, we'll become what we destroyed. Webb nodded slowly. He understood the danger. It was easy to become a tyrant when you had the power to crush anyone who opposed you. The Council had started as liberators too, 11,000 years ago. Then they had become monsters. Humanity had to be better. They had to find another way. I'll start reaching out to potential allies, Webb said. But it won't be quick. Trust takes time to build, I know, but we have to start somewhere. Across the galaxy, that process was already beginning. On the agricultural world of Chemoth, a human trade delegation was negotiating their first agreement. The Chemoth were a peaceful species, herbivores who had been forced to grow food for the Council for generations. They had never been allowed to trade freely, never been allowed to set their own prices, never been allowed to decide their own future. The human diplomat, a young man named James Asoni, sat across from the KTH elders and made them an offer unlike anything they had ever heard. We want to buy your grain, he said. At fair market prices, whatever you think it's worth, and we'll pay in technology, medicines, agricultural equipment, whatever you need. The KTH elders exchanged glances. They were used to demands, not negotiations. They were used to taking what they could get, not deciding what they deserved. You would let us set the prices? One elder asked hesitantly. Of course. It's your grain. You grew it. You should decide what it's worth. But what if we ask for too much? Okan smiled. Then we'll negotiate. That's how trade works. We find a price that's fair to both of us. Nobody gets cheated. Nobody gets forced. We both win or we don't make a deal. The concept was so foreign that the elders had to discuss it among themselves for nearly an hour. When they came back, their leader was almost in tears. We accept, she said. And we want to thank you for treating us like we matter. You do matter, Okona said. Everyone matters. That's the whole point. Similar scenes were playing out across hundreds of worlds. Human diplomats, traders, engineers, doctors, all of them spreading out through the galaxy, offering help without strings, making deals without threats, building relationships without coercion. It was slow work. Many species were suspicious. They had been tricked too many times to trust easily. But gradually, one conversation at a time, one handshake at a time, humanity was proving that they were different. Not everyone was convinced. In the dark spaces between stars, remnants of the Council were gathering. Species that had benefited from the old order. Leaders who had lost their power. Warriors who wanted revenge. They were fighting each other, forming alliances, planning their response. Admiral Zathol of the Zalari had gathered a fleet of 40 ships around the dead moon in the outer arm. It wasn't much a fraction of what the Council had once commanded. But it was a start. The humans are spread thin, he told his commanders. They're trying to be everywhere at once, protecting the weak, negotiating with the strong, rebuilding what we destroyed. They don't have enough ships to do all of that and defend themselves. You want to attack them? One commander asked. Not yet. First we watch, we wait, we gather strength. Zathro's 4 eyes gleamed in the dim light of the command center. The humans won their war through deception and surprise. They pretended to be weak until it was too late for us to respond. We will use the same strategy against them. And then we strike at their heart. We destroy their homeworld. We show the galaxy that humanity can be broken just like anyone else. The commanders nodded. They had lost everything. Their station, their power, their pride. Revenge was all they had left. That they had underestimated humanity once. They would not make that mistake again. In the shadows, they began to plan. In the silence, they began to build. And in the darkness between stars, the seeds of a new war were being planted. Humanity didn't know it yet. They were too busy trying to heal the galaxy to notice the danger growing in the void. But they would learn. And when they did, they would face a choice. Become the very thing they had destroyed, or find a way to defeat their enemies without losing their souls. The battle for the galaxy was far from over. It was just beginning on Earth. Life was returning to normal, or at least a new kind of normal. The evacuation shelters were emptying. People were going back to their homes, their jobs, their lives. The immediate threat was over, but everything had changed. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe. They were no longer isolated on their small blue planet. They were part of something much larger, now a galaxy full of wonders and dangers, opportunities and threats. Schools began teaching galactic history. Universities opened departments of xenobiology and interstellar politics. Children grew up dreaming not just of Earth's nations, but of distant stars. In Tokyo, a young woman named Akiko Tanaka, no relation to the captain of the Nemesis, stood on her apartment balcony and looked up at the night sky. She was 23 years old. She had lived through the crisis, as people were already calling it. She had spent 2 days in an underground shelter waiting to find out if she would live or die. Now she was alive, and the universe was open. "I want to go out there," she said softly. Her boyfriend Kenji stood beside her. "Out there to space, to everywhere. I want to see other worlds. I want to meet other species. I want to train." She struggled to find the words. "I want to be part of it. Whatever we're building out there, I want to help." Kenji took her hand. "Then let's do it. Let's apply to the exploration course together." Akko smiled. It was a dream she'd never dared to have before. Now it was possible. All across Earth, millions of people were having similar thoughts. The galaxy was out there waiting, and humanity was ready to claim its place among the stars. Not as conquerors, not as destroyers, but as builders, as dreamers, as friends. The Council had ruled through fear for 11,000 years. Humanity would try something different. They would lead through hope. It wouldn't be easy. It wouldn't be quick. There would be setbacks and failures and dark moments when they questioned whether it was worth it. But they would try, because that's what humans did. They tried. They failed. They got back up and tried again. And sometimes, just sometimes, they succeeded. The stars were waiting. Humanity was coming, and the galaxy would never be the same. 6 months had passed since the fall of the Council. The galaxy was changing slowly, painfully, but unmistakably changing. Ambassador Alina Vasquez stood in the conference room of humanity's new diplomatic station, watching delegates from 30 different species file into the chamber. Some walked on 2 legs like humans. Some floated on cushions of air. Some crawled. Some slithered. Some moved in ways that defied description. All of them were here for the same reason, to talk about the future. "Representatives of the Free World's Assembly," Vasquez began. "Thank you for coming. 6 months ago, we destroyed an empire that had ruled for 11,000 years. Today, we begin the work of building something better." The delegates murmured among themselves. Some were skeptical. Others were hopeful. All of them were uncertain. A tall insectoid being raised one of its forearms. This was Representative Chicixel, of the Monturi Collective. a species that had been oppressed by the Council for centuries. Ambassador Vasquez, Chicknell said, its voice clicking and buzzing. My people are grateful for what humanity has done. We lived as slaves for generations. Now we are free. But we must ask, what does humanity want in return? It was the question everyone was thinking. Nobody did anything for free. There was always a price. Vasquez smiled. She had expected this. What we want is simple. We want peace. We want trade. We want the chance to explore the galaxy, to learn from other species, to share what we know. We don't want subjects or servants. We want partners. Pretty words. Another delegate said this was Krenvok of the Zalari, or what remained of them. His species had been the leaders of the council. Now they were scattered and broken, their homeworld occupied by human peacekeepers. The council said similar things when they rose to power. And look what they became. You're right, Vasquez said calmly. The council started with good intentions. They became monsters because nobody held them accountable. Nobody had the power to stop them when they went too far. She looked around the room. We want to create something different. A system where no single species, including humanity, has absolute power. Where everyone has a voice. Where everyone has a vote. The chamber fell silent. This was revolutionary. The council had never allowed lesser species to have any say in galactic affairs. The idea that humanity would voluntarily share power was almost unbelievable. You would give us equal standing? Chickikal asked. Even though you have the most powerful military in the galaxy. Yes. Why? Vasquez thought carefully before answering. This was the moment that would define humanity's relationship with the galaxy for generations to come. Because power without accountability corrupts everyone who holds it, she said. We've seen it in our own history, again and again. Leaders who started as liberators became tyrants. Nations that fought for freedom became oppressors. The only way to prevent it is to build systems that limit power that spread it among many hands, instead of concentrating it in one. She stood and walked to the window. Outside, ships from a dozen species moved through the station's docking base. It was a symbol of what they were trying to build, a galaxy where different species worked together, instead of against each other. We could rule you, Vasquez continued. We have the weapons. We have the ships. We could become exactly what the council was. But we choose not to. We choose to trust that if we treat you as equals, you will treat us the same way. We choose to believe that cooperation is better than domination. She turned back to face the delegates. Maybe we're wrong. Maybe you'll betray us. Maybe this whole experiment will fail. But we have to try, because the alternative becoming what we destroyed is not acceptable to us. The chamber was silent for a long moment. Then slowly Chicknell began to make a sound of rhythmic clicking that Vasquez recognized as the Mantari equivalent of applause. Others joined in using whatever gestures their species used to show approval. Not everyone participated. Kren sat in stony silence, his eyes cold with hatred. Others looked uncertain, unconvinced, but the majority seemed willing to give humanity a chance. It was a start. While diplomats talked, soldiers kept working. Captain Yuki Tanaka's ship, the Nemesis, had been patrolling the outer rim for 3 months. It was dangerous work. The collapse of the council had created a power vacuum, and all sorts of predators were rushing to fill it. Today, they were investigating a distress signal from a Mayan colony on a distant moon. Anything on sensors? Tanaka asked. Her tactical officer, Lieutenant Chen, studied his display. The colony is intact, but I'm detecting weapons fire. Ground-based. Someone's attacking them. How many hostiles? Hard to say. Maybe 50. They're using Council-era equipment outdated, but still dangerous. Tanaka nodded. The attackers were probably scavengers beings, who had served the Council's military and now had no employment except violence. There were thousands of them scattered across the galaxy, taking what they could from whoever was too weak to stop them. Take us in! Launch drop pods on my command! The Nemesis descended through the moon's thin atmosphere. Below, Tanaka could see the mining colony, a cluster of dome buildings surrounded by excavation equipment. Figures were running between buildings. Fires burned in several locations. Drop pods away, Chun reported. 30 human soldiers fell from the sky. Their pods crashed into the ground around the colony. opening to reveal armored figures carrying weapons that could punch through stone. The scavengers didn't stand a chance. It was over in 12 minutes. The attackers were either killed or captured. The colonists, small, timid beings called the Prel, emerged from their shelters, trembling with fear and relief. Tanaka walked through the colony, surveying the damage. It wasn't too bad. A few buildings were destroyed. Some equipment was damaged. Nothing that couldn't be repaired. A Prel approached her, going so low that his head nearly touched the ground. "Please," he said. "We have nothing left. They took everything. We cannot pay you for your help." Tanaka knelt down to meet his eyes. "We don't want payment then. What do you want? Our labor, our children. We will give you anything. Just please don't hurt us." It broke Tanaka's heart to see such fear. This being had lived his whole life expecting cruelty from the powerful. He couldn't imagine any other possibility. "We don't want anything," she said gently. "We came because you needed help, that's all." The Prowl elder stared at her, uncomprehending. "But why? We are nothing. We have nothing. Why would you risk your lives for us?" Tanaka thought about how to explain. How did you describe basic decency to someone who had never experienced it? "On my world," she said slowly, "we have a saying, the strong protect the weak. Not because they have to, not because they expect something in return, but because it's right. Because that's what strength is for." The elder was silent for a long moment. Then slowly tears began to fall from his large dark eyes. "We have lived under the council for 2,000 years, he said. "We thought we knew what the galaxy was. We thought we knew what power meant." He looked up at her. "You have shown us something different, something we did not believe was possible." He reached out and touched her hand, a gesture of profound trust in Priel culture. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you for teaching us hope." Tanaka helped the colonists rebuild. Her engineers repaired their equipment. Her medics treated their wounded. Her soldiers stood guard, while the Pearl slowly emerged from their terror. When she left 3 days later, the colony's children waved goodbye from the landing pad. They were still scared, still uncertain about the future, but they were also, for the first time in their lives, hopeful. It was moments like these that made the work worth it. But not all moments were hopeful. In the Outer Arm, Admiral Zathal was building his fleet. 6 months of patience had paid off. Ships had come to him one by one. Remnants of the Council military, mercenaries looking for employment, opportunists who saw profit in chaos. His fleet had grown from 40 ships to nearly 200. It wasn't enough to challenge humanity directly, but it was enough to cause damage, enough to prove that humanity could bleed. "Our scouts have returned," his aide reported. "They've identified a target." "Show me." A holographic display flickered to life, showing a small human outpost on the edge of explored space. It was a research station lightly defended. Maybe 50 humans lived there, studying some insignificant phenomenon that Zathil didn't care about. But humanity would care. They cared about everything. They cared about their people. That was their weakness. "When do we attack?" the aide asked. The news of Captain Chun's sacrifice spread through the galaxy like wildfire. On 1,000 worlds, beings of every species watched the recordings of his final battle. They saw one ship standing against 200. They saw one man giving his life to protect strangers. And they understood something about humanity that no words could have explained. On Earth, the funeral was broadcast to every screen on the planet. Millions watched as Captain David Chun was buried with full military honors. His daughter, a young woman named Lisa, accepted the flag that had draped his coffin. Her face was wet with tears, but her head was held high. "My father believed in something," she said to the assembled crowd. "He believed that the strong should protect the weak. He believed that some things were worth dying for. He believed that humanity could be better than its past." She looked out at the sea of faces. Humans, yes, but also aliens. Species from across the galaxy had sent representatives to honor the man who had saved their people on that distant station. "Today, we bury a hero," Lisa continued. "But his spirit lives on every time one of us stands up for someone who can't stand up for themselves. Every time we choose courage over fear. Every time we remember that what we do matters more than what we have." She paused. "That's my father's legacy. That's what he died for." The crowd was silent. Then slowly, they began to applaud. Not the thunderous applause of celebration, but something quieter, something more respectful. The sound of people honoring a man who had earned their admiration. Ambassador Vasquez watched from the front row. She had known Chum since the beginning, since those first tense days when humanity had revealed itself to the galaxy. He had been the captain of the Prometheus, the bait in their trap. He had risked everything on their plan. Now he was gone, and the galaxy was watching to see what humanity would do next. She hoped they would make the right choice. 3 days after the funeral, the Free World's Assembly convened its largest meeting yet. Representatives from over 100 species gathered in the Great Hall of humanity's diplomatic station. The chamber buzzed with conversation in dozens of languages, all translated by the sophisticated systems that humanity had shared freely with anyone who wanted them. Vasquez took her place at the podium. The room fell silent. "My friends," she began, "we have spent 6 months building something new. A galaxy where cooperation replaces domination, where voices are heard instead of silenced, where the strong protect the weak instead of exploiting them." She paused, looking around the room. She saw faces she recognized, allies who had stood with humanity from the beginning. She saw faces she didn't know, species who had only recently joined the assembly, still uncertain about this strange new order. And she saw faces that were openly hostile. The Zalari delegation, representatives from other council species who still dreamed of the old ways. 3 days ago, Vasquez continued, Captain David Chun gave his life to protect a research station. 52 humans and 30 aliens survived because of his sacrifice. He didn't ask who they were. He didn't ask what they could offer him. He just did what was right. She let the words hang in the air. That is what humanity believes in. That is what we are trying to build. A galaxy where Captain Chun's choice to risk everything for strangers is not unusual. A galaxy where that kind of courage is normal, expected, universal. A murmur ran through the chamber. Some delegates nodded in approval. Others looked skeptical. A few looked offended, as if the idea of self-sacrifice was somehow beneath them. "I know some of you doubt us," Vasquez said. "I know some of you are waiting for us to show our true colors to become tyrants like the Council. I know that trust takes time to build, and we haven't had much time yet." She straightened her shoulders. "So, let me make something clear. We could rule this galaxy. We have the weapons, the ships, the technology. After what Zathal did after he attacked our civilians, murdered our scientists, killed our people, we would have every right to seek revenge, to hunt down the remnants of the Council, and destroy them completely, to become exactly what they were." The chamber was absolutely silent now. Every eye was on Vasquez. "We choose not to." She let that sink in. Not because we're weak, not because we're naive, but because revenge creates nothing. It only destroys. If we spend our energy hunting down enemies, we'll never have time to build the future we want. We'll become monsters, fighting monsters forever. She looked directly at the Zalari delegation. Krenvok met her eyes without flinching. "Even to those who have harmed us, we offer a choice. Join the assembly. Accept a new order. Work with us instead of against us. We will not forget what happened. We will not pretend it didn't hurt, but we will forgive, because that's the only way forward." Krenvok stood slowly. The chamber held its breath. "You speak of forgiveness," he said. His voice was cold, but there was something else in it, something that might have been confusion. "You offer us a place in your new order after we tried to destroy you, after our admiral killed your people. Why? What do you gain from this mercy?" "We gain the future," Vasquez replied. "Every species we bring into the assembly is one more voice helping to build something better. Every enemy we turn into an ally is one few-era threat to peace." She paused. "And honestly, revenge is exhausting. We'd rather spend our energy on things that matter." A small laugh rippled through the chamber. Even Krenvok's mouth twitched slightly. "You are a strange species," he said finally. "I do not understand you. I do not trust you." But he hesitated, as if the next words were physically painful. "Perhaps you are right. Perhaps the old ways are truly over. Perhaps it is time to try something new." He sat down around the chamber. Delegates exchanged surprised glances. The Zalari had been the leaders of the council. If even they were willing to consider change, maybe there was hope. Dodd Vasquez felt something loosen in her chest. It was too early to celebrate. There would be setbacks, conflicts, maybe even wars. But this moment, this single moment of possibility, was what they had been working toward. Then let us begin, she said. Let us build something that has never existed before. A galaxy of equals, a galaxy of friends, a galaxy where no species has to fear extinction because they dared to dream of something better. The applause that followed was thunderous. 1 year later, the galaxy was almost unrecognizable. The Free World's assembly had grown from a 100 species to over 200. Trade routes that had been controlled by the council were now open to everyone. Technology that had been hoarded was being shared. Species that had been isolated for centuries were meeting each other for the first time. On the planet Velran, the blue-skinned traders who had been saved by Captain Tanaka were thriving. Their merchant fleet had grown from a handful of ships to nearly 1,000. They had become one of the galaxy's most successful trading species, not through conquest, but through fair dealing and hard work. The Velan elder who had first met, Tanaka, stood on a hillside, overlooking her planet's capital city. Beside her was her granddaughter, a young female who had been born into freedom. "Tell me again about the humans," the granddaughter said. The elder smiled. "When I was your age, we lived in fear. The council took whatever they wanted. We had no voice, no power, no hope. Then the humans came, and they saved us. They did more than save us. They showed us that another way was possible, that the strong could protect the weak, that species could work together instead of fighting." The elder looked out at her city that had grown and flourished in just 1 year of freedom. "They gave us the chance to be what we were always meant to be." What's that? Free. On Threshold, the Kree warriors had found a new purpose. General Vortax stood at the head of a formation of soldiers. The bees were not the brutal enforcers of the council anymore. They wore a new uniform, a simple design with the emblem of the Free World's assembly on their shoulders. "Soon, but first we need to draw away their protectors." Zithril's 4 eyes gleamed. "Send word to our allies in the system. Tell them to begin their uprising. When humanity rushes to respond, we will strike at their soft underbelly. And the civilians on the station." Zithril shrugged. "Kill them all. Leave nothing alive. Make humanity understand that they cannot protect everyone." The plan was set in motion. 3 days later, the system erupted in violence. Supporters of the old council attacked government buildings, killing dozens of the new pro-human administration. Human ships rushed to respond, leaving gaps in their patrol routes. Gaps that Zithril's fleet slipped through. The ESS Horizon was a research station staffed by 52 humans and 30 alien researchers from 6 different species. They studied gravitational anomalies, strange ripples in space-time that might someday lead to faster travel between stars. Dr. Maria Santos was leading the morning briefing when the alarm sounded. Unknown ships approaching. Her assistant shouted, "Multiple contacts. They're not responding to hails." Santos felt her blood run cold. The station had minimal defenses, a few point defense guns meant to deal with space debris. Nothing more. They were scientists, not soldiers. "Get everyone to the emergency shelters," she ordered, "and send a distress signal. Maximum power. Someone has to hear us." The signal went out into the void, but the nearest human warship was 6 hours away. Whatever was coming, they would face it alone. Zithil's fleet surrounded the station like wolves circling prey. 200 ships wrestling with weapons, closing in on 50 defenseless researchers. "Open a channel," Zithil commanded. "I want them to know who kills them." His face appeared on every screen in the station. Dr. Santos recognized him immediately. A Zalari, one of the council species, one of humanity's enemies. "Humans," Zithal said. "You destroyed my people. You destroyed my world. Now I will destroy yours, one piece at a time. This station is just the beginning. We're civilians," Santa shouted back. "We're not soldiers. We're not a threat to anyone. You're human." "That's enough," Zil smiled coldly. "Tell your people what happens here today. Tell them that the council remembers. Tell them that we are coming." The transmission ended. Outside the station's windows, the enemy ships powered up their weapons. Santas closed her eyes. She thought about her family back on Earth. She thought about the research they would never finish. She thought about all the things she would never see. This is how it ends, she thought. This is how we die. Then she heard a sound that made no sense. The tactical display, previously showing only enemy ships, suddenly showed something new. A single ship dropping out of faster-than-light travel, directly between the station and Zithral's fleet. It was the ESV Prometheus, the original Prometheus, the primitive decoy ship that had started everything. The ship that was supposed to be nothing more than a bluff, but 6 months of refits had transformed it. Its crude hull now bristled with human weapons. Its slow engines had been replaced with state-of-the-art propulsion. It was still one ship against 200, but it was enough to buy time. "This is Captain David Chun, of the ESV Prometheus," a voice announced over an open channel. "To all vessels threatening this station, stand down immediately, or be destroyed." Zil laughed. "One ship. You send one ship against my fleet. This is your response." "My response is buying time," Chun replied calmly. "Our fleet will be here in 6 hours. I only need to keep you busy until then. You'll be dead in 6 minutes. Maybe, but I'll take a lot of you with me." Zara's smile faded. He knew humans well enough by now to know that they didn't bluff. This captain was willing to die for those researchers, willing to throw his life away just to delay the inevitable. It was insane. It was irrational. It was human. "All ships," Zil commanded. "Destroy him." 200 ships opened fire on one. The Prometheus danced. There was no other word for it. The ship moved in ways that shouldn't have been possible, spinning, diving, accelerating in patterns that defied prediction. Captain Chun had been flying for 30 years. He had studied every combat tactic in human history. He had trained in simulators until his reflexes were perfect. Now he used everything he knew. The Prometheus's weapons fired continuously, not aiming to destroy, but to disrupt. Missiles forced enemy ships to evade. Energy beams targeted engines and sensors. Every shot was designed to slow the enemy down, to create chaos, to buy precious seconds. 1 minute passed, then 2, then 5. Ships fell, destroyed by the Prometheus's weapons or by collisions as they tried to avoid fire. Zephral's fleet was being worn down one vessel at a time, but the damage was adding up. The Prometheus's hull was breached in a dozen places. Systems were failing. Crew members were dying. Hull integrity at 40%. Chen's first officer reported her voice was steady, despite the blood running down her face. "Weapon systems failing. We can't keep this up much longer." Chun checked the clock. 4 hours until the fleet arrived. They would never make it, but they had to try. "All hands. This is the captain. Abandon ship. Get to the escape pods." "That's an order." "Sir, what about you?" "Someone has to keep flying. Someone has to keep them busy." Chun smiled grimly. "Get going. That's in order." Escape pods launched from the Prometheus as Shan continued his desperate dance. One by one, his crew abandoned ship, heading toward the station where they might survive. Soon, Chun was alone. His ship was dying around him. Fires burned in the corridors. The air was growing thin. Half his weapons were gone. But he kept flying, kept fighting, kept buying time. Zothro watched from his flagship, equal parts angry and impressed. One human, one ship, against 200 enemies, and he was still fighting. It was magnificent. It was infuriating. It was everything the Council had failed to understand about humanity. They didn't give up. They didn't surrender. They fought until their last breath, and then they kept fighting. "Sir," his aide said quietly, "human reinforcements will arrive in 2 hours." 2 hours. Zal looked at the burning wreck of the Prometheus, still somehow moving, still somehow fighting. At this rate, it might actually survive until then. He couldn't allow that. The whole point of this attack was to prove that humanity could be defeated. If one ship could hold off his entire fleet, that message would be lost. "All ships," he commanded. "Focus fire on the human vessel. Destroy it now." Every weapon in the fleet turned toward the Prometheus. For a long moment, the universe seemed to hold its breath. Then they fired. Captain David Chun saw the wall of destruction coming toward him. He knew he couldn't dodge it. He knew he couldn't survive it. He thought about Earth. He thought about his daughter who would never know how her father died. He thought about all the people on that station who would live because he had bought them time. It was worth it, he decided. It was all worth it. This is Captain Chun to anyone who can hear me, he said softly. Tell Earth we did our job. Tell them we didn't give up. The weapon struck. The Prometheus exploded in a ball of fire, and Captain David Chun, hero of humanity, died. But he had succeeded. His sacrifice had bought enough time. When Zephril tried to resume his attack on the station, scanners detected the approaching human fleet. Not 6 hours away anymore, but 2. Word had spread. Ships had diverted from other patrol routes. Humanity was coming. Zafar had no choice but to retreat. The station survived. The researchers survived. And across the galaxy, news spread of what Captain Chen had done. 1 man, 1 ship, 200 enemies, and humanity had won. You have trained for 3 months, Bornak told them. You have learned the laws of the Assembly. You have sworn to protect the innocent and defend the weak. Today, you become peacekeepers. The soldiers, Kree humans, and a dozen other species stood in attention. They were the first graduates of the Assembly's new peacekeeping program, created to maintain order without oppression. The galaxy is changing, Bornak continued. The old ways are dying. Some will try to bring them back. Pirates, warlords, remnants of the Council. They will test us. They will attack the helpless. They will try to prove that strength is only good for domination. He paused, looking at the soldiers before him. We will prove them wrong. We will show the galaxy that strength can protect, that warriors can defend instead of destroy, that the Seraph, once the most feared soldiers in the galaxy, can become its greatest guardians. The soldiers saluted. It was a gesture borrowed from humanity, a sign of respect that had spread throughout the Assembly. Vortak returned the salute. He had never imagined this life. He had spent centuries as a weapon of oppression. Now, in his final years, he would be something better. It was. He decided a good way to end in the space around Earth. A new station was being built. It was enormous, larger than the station had ever been, but it was different in important ways. There was no throne at its center. No single species controlled it. It belonged to everyone. Ambassador Vasquez toured the construction site with delegates from a dozen worlds. They moved through corridors that were still being finished, past workers from every species imaginable. This will be the new assembly hall, she explained. Every species will have a seat here. Every voice will be heard. Decisions will be made by consensus, not decree. A Mantari delegate clicked approval. It is remarkable. In all my years, I never imagined such a thing was possible. Neither did we, Vasquez admitted. When we first discovered the Council, we were terrified. We thought the galaxy was a dark and dangerous place full of predators waiting to destroy us. And now, Vasquez smiled, now we know the truth. The galaxy is full of beings who want the same things we do. Peace, security, the chance to build something meaningful. The Council kept them afraid and divided. We're trying to bring them together. You are succeeding. We're starting. It will take generations to truly change the galaxy. We're planting seeds, not harvesting crops. Our children and grandchildren will see the full flower of what we're building. She paused, looking out a window at the vast construction project. But it's worth it. Every struggle, every setback, every sacrifice. It's all worth it. In the quiet spaces between stars, threats still lurked. Admiral Zathiel had not given up. His fleet had been reduced by his failed attack on the research station, but he had rebuilt. Slowly, carefully, he had gathered ships and weapons. He had made alliances with other remnants of the Council species who refused to accept the new order. Now, a year after his humiliation, he was ready to strike again. We have identified the target, his aide reported. The new assembly station. It is not yet fully operational. Its defenses are incomplete. If we strike now, we can destroy it before they can respond. Sadal studied the tactical display. The station was massive, a symbol of everything the assembly was trying to build. Destroying it would send a message that the old ways were not dead, that the Council could still strike fear into the galaxy. "How many ships do they have defending it?" he asked. "Approximately 50. They have called for reinforcements, but the nearest fleet is 4 hours away." Zathrael smiled. "Then we attack now. All ships maximum speed. We destroy the station and leave before help arrives." His fleet, nearly 300 vessels gathered from across the galaxy, jumped into faster-than-light travel. In 1 hour they would reach Earth. In 1 hour they would prove that humanity was not invincible, or so Zathil believed. What he didn't know was that humanity had learned from the attack on the research station. They had improved their detection systems. They had hidden reserve fleets in strategic locations. And they had made allies who were willing to fight for the new order. The moment Zephyr's fleet entered Earth's solar system, alarms sounded across a dozen worlds. On Threshold, General Vortak received the alert. Without hesitation, he ordered his newly trained peacekeepers to battle stations. Within minutes, a Crest fleet, once humanity's enemy. Now, their ally was racing toward Earth. On Velen, the Merchant Guild mobilized its fastest ships. They couldn't fight, but they could provide supplies, transport wounded, and coordinate communications. They had sworn to stand with humanity, and they would not break that oath from the Manturi Collective, from the Pearl Colonies, from a 100 worlds that had found hope in the assembly ships launched into the void. Not because they were ordered to, not because they expected payment, but because they believed in what humanity was building. And because they remembered Captain Chen, Zethol's fleet, arrived at Earth to find something unexpected. The 50 defenders he had anticipated had grown to nearly 1,000. Ships from dozens of species surrounded the half-finished assembly station, forming a wall of protection. "This is impossible," Zethal whispered. "Where did they all come from?" Admiral Chen Wei, promoted after her leadership in the early days of the conflict, appeared on his screen. She was older now, her hair strained with gray, but her eyes were sharp as ever. "Admiral Zethal," she said calmly, "you're outmatched. Surrender now, and your crews will be treated fairly. Continue your attack, and you will be destroyed." Zethal stared at the tactical display. His 300 ships faced 1,000. It wasn't even close. "You can't have gathered this many allies in a year," he said. "Nobody builds trust that fast." "We didn't build trust," Chunwei replied. "We earned it. Every ship you see represents a species that humanity helped. Every crew out there is fighting because they chose to, not because they were forced." She paused. "That's the difference between us and the Council. You ruled through fear. We lead through example." Zathol was silent for a long moment. He thought about his fleet. He thought about the Council he had served for centuries. He thought about everything he had believed, that power was meant to dominate, that strength meant crushing the weak. He had been so certain, so confident that his way was the only way. Now, looking at the armada that had gathered to defend humanity, he wasn't certain anymore. "What happens if I surrender?" he asked quietly. "You stand trial for your crimes. Your crew is released. Your ships are impounded." Chunwi's voice softened slightly. "And if you truly want to change, if you want to be part of the new galaxy instead of fighting against it, there might be a place for you eventually." It was more than he deserved. He knew that after everything he had done, the research station, the innocent people he had killed, he deserved destruction. But humanity was offering him mercy. He thought about refusing. He thought about dying in battle, a final act of defiance against the new order. Then he thought about what that would accomplish. Nothing. His death would change nothing. The assembly would survive. The new galaxy would continue to grow. His sacrifice would be forgotten in a year. Or he could live. He could see what humanity was building. He could try against every instinct he had to understand why they chose cooperation over domination. "All ships," he said slowly, "stand down. Lower shields. Surrender." His aides stared at him in disbelief. "Admiral, the war is over. We lost. Not today. We lost a year ago, when humanity showed the galaxy that another way was possible." Zethil slumped in his command chair. "I was too stubborn to see it. Now I see." The remnant fleet powered down their weapons. Human and allied ships moved in to take custody of them. The battle that could have killed thousands ended without a single shot fired. On the assembly station, Ambassador Vasquez watched the surrender with tears in her eyes. Not tears of victory, tears of relief. They had died. They had built something strong enough to defend itself without becoming what they had destroyed. Beside her, Captain Tanaka smiled slightly. "Not bad for a year's work. It's just the beginning," Vasquez replied. "We have so much more to do." "I know, but look at what we've accomplished." Tanaka gestured at the fleet outside. The ships from so many different species all working together. A year ago, most of these people had never met a human. Now they're willing to fight for us, to die for us. Not for us, Vasquez corrected gently. For what we represent. For the idea that the galaxy can be better. That we don't have to be afraid of each other. That the strong can protect the weak, instead of exploiting them. She turned to face the young captain. Captain Chun understood that. He died for it. And today we proved that his death meant something. Tanaka nodded slowly. So, what happens now? Vasquez looked out at the galaxy. Millions of stars. Billions of worlds. Countless species all learning to work together. Now we keep building. Keep hoping. Keep proving that we're worth believing in. She smiled. It's going to take a while, but I think we're on the right track. Outside the window, the Allied fleet began to disperse. Ships from 100 worlds headed home, carrying stories of what they had seen, of the day the galaxy came together to defend a dream. The Council had ruled through fear for 11,000 years. Humanity would lead through hope, and the galaxy would never be the same. 1 year after the fall of the Council, the first session of the completed Galactic Assembly opened. Representatives from 200 species filled the Great Hall, their voices rising in 100 languages, all united in a single purpose. At the center of the chamber, carved in stone, were words that would guide the galaxy for generations to come. Words that captured everything humanity had fought for, everything Captain Chun had died for, everything the galaxy was trying to become. The strong protect the weak, the many serve the few, and together, we are more than any of us alone. Beneath those words, Alina Vasquez, no longer ambassador, now the first Secretary General of the Galactic Assembly, rose to speak. "My friends," she said, "welcome to the future." The galaxy listened, and humanity smiled.